just want to ask everybody who's watching to please comment your name, write your name in the comments so I know who is here, because I've got this and I really want to give it away. I really, really do. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So whoever is watching us live, put your name in there and then we will draw from those names and you get to have that book. Isn't that exciting, Noelle?
Dr. Joe is one of my very, very, very favorites. And one of our colleagues, one of Zanna and my colleagues just returned from his 1 week retreat in Colorado. So
oh, wow.
Very topical right now. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. So all of my beloved friends here in Freedom Lifestyle Entrepreneurs, this is my friend, my mentor, my leader, my rah-rah lady, and I just absolutely love her. And Noelle O'Foster, she is a dynamo and a dynamite person, and I met her because she was leading a 28-day gratitude practice. And I was so attracted to her face, her smile, the way she talks, and just her demeanor and also her message. And so I joined forces with Noelle, and it's been, yay, rockets going off ever since. So Noelle, I have a bunch of questions, and I want you to tell your story. Where are you from? What was your situation when you started your freedom lifestyle business? And yeah, start us off.
Yeah, so I love you too, Zanna. And that's the thing about when we come more into alignment with ourselves, the people who we need to have in our sphere, in our orbit, they're attracted to us, because that's just how the law of attraction works, right? If you know Dr. Joe Dispenza, you know that's how it works, right? Quantum physics. So, so 2 years ago, well, I'd say a little bit more than 2 years ago, I was in a very difficult, toxic marriage. I was a late in life mama. I didn't have my first child until 42 and my second child at 45. And interestingly, and maybe some of your viewers can relate, having children is like a catalyst for all the work that you didn't do yet, right? That you need to do. They're like a mirror, like, there you go. Yeah. There's your stuff right there, right? And so my son actually just finished kindergarten, and I'm 51. So you get a little, I'm just right up front with all of this, right? I'm very pro-age, very pro-age. So but what had happened was I really came to the realization that this marriage it wasn't okay for me to be in this marriage anymore. And we had done the work, we had really worked hard, and it just wasn't the right relationship for anybody, for us, for my children, for me, for him. And so at the ripe age of like almost 50, I was 49, homeschooling mother, writer, and so forth, but I hadn't really been hadn't been a big earner because I was raising kids, so I had like a very, very part-time income. And when my daughter is almost 10, so she was like almost 8 at the time, so I had been really immersed in parenting for like a good 8 years, right? It's kind of solid. And when I realized that I needed to liberate myself financially, because that's part of the deal, right? And took a look at what the landscape was like in business. It was so different from where I had been, because that was the rise of social media and, online business and all of this, right? So I knew that I needed to up-level my skills and learn about this and create this for myself, because I really didn't want to. I'm like a freedom person like you, Zanna. I can't do the 9 to 5. I have tried it before. And it literally felt like soul death. I felt myself, it was not the right, it was like, if you take a plant and you transplant it in the wrong kind of soil, it's too acidic, it's not enough water, whatever it is, it actually starts to suffer. And that's how I felt. Like my body, mind, soul were just like atrophying, right? And so I couldn't do that again. I knew I couldn't do that again. I'm waited so long to have kids, and it was so sweet, and it was so it was like everything for me, right? That I knew that I couldn't just go and do what I know many parents feel they have to do. I don't feel they have to do it. I feel like there's another way, but I didn't want to send them off to an institution and go off to another institution and work 8 hours a day plus 3 hours of aftercare, and then rush home and, you know, make dinner and do the homework and get a bath and get a bed and get up in the next morning. And then it just felt like, man, maybe because I was too old and tired, like I can't do that. And I don't want to do it. And so I knew, because I'd seen people succeeding in the online space, and they were succeeding in a way that was not like, it was very aligned. It was very soul aligned. It was very conscious. It was really like centered around value and service, but it provided them an ability to have a freedom lifestyle. So I knew that it was possible, and I felt it in my core. Like I felt like, and I think maybe the midlife women and men, I'm sure, could relate to this, is like, there's a certain point in your life when you come to that, you know, that there's more, and that you really can't pretend anymore. Brene Brown talks about this, like midlife is like that catalyst, right? Like, I know there's magic in here and it's gotta come out, right? I think this is the reason a lot of midlife women get sick. They either choose the brave path, and they're like, I'm going to step into my power. I'm going to step into the truest version of myself, or I'm too afraid. And then I think that's the reason why illness and cancer and so forth shows up. But so right around about that time, interestingly, the universe is such a wonderful co-creator, right? Mm-hmm. You ask and you'll receive, right? Especially when it's given with gratitude. We met in this gratitude group. I put the ask out, and a law of attraction brought into my orbit a group of conscious entrepreneurs that were doing exactly what I had imagined was possible, which was showing up with our authentic self, with my specific blueprint, with my values, in a way that I can reach a broad, like I can reach people all over the world, and I can monetize, and I'm aligned with conscious, sustainable products and services. And it just feels like it just checked all the boxes. So that's I'm a storyteller. So you're going to get maybe like a shaggy dog story with every question that you ask. So 2019, that's what I started. And it was kind of like a soul's journey, because I got to unpack all sorts of stuff as I learned how to create my personal brand. I got to burn down limiting beliefs. I got to learn new skills and embody them. And then once they're embodied, I now get to teach them and mentor others to do the same thing. So that's like I'm sorry, I couldn't make that long story short, but that's about a bit about me. You asked me where I live. I live out in the country on 10 acres in Northern California. My kids we are unschooled / eclectic homeschooled. So we're very, I educate them to their interests and their zones of genius. And they're brilliant. My son was reading before kindergarten. But they're very free. They're barefoot and in the dirt and in the trees and riding their bikes pretty much all day long. So that's who we are. And I think that brings everybody up to speed, I believe.
Yes.
So let me know if I missed anything.
No, but I was wondering, since you made that change and you made that shift and you made that decision, what has been the trajectory of your life? What's it been like since then?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because there's a lot of world events that happened around the same time that was going on. So there's two pieces, right? And one of the pieces is that a personal brand or anything big that anybody does is a soul's journey, right? And there is a wonderful book called The 4-Hour Work Week, which was written for people like you and me who want a freedom lifestyle. And how do you accomplish a freedom lifestyle? We overly aggrandize and deify working hard. Like, we got to work hard, right, and to the detriment of our health and mental and spiritual and family health. And one of the things talked about in that book is the emotional cycle of change. And there is a cycle, and I highly recommend that book. Maybe I'll find it on my shelf and snapshot one of the graphic that I'm talking about right now. But when you start off with on a journey, like on a hero's journey, right, you might have a certain amount of unrealistic optimism. It's great because it gets you launched, it gets the ship launched, right? And then you start to realize that it's not like a golden lottery ticket, right? Because there's a rule of law in anything really. Any high achievers know that it's 80% inner work and 20% strategy, right? Yes, there are people who are addicted to self-development, who never take action and they never build anything. But there are people who are doers and they don't ever work on the 80%. And then they get frustrated why it's not working for them. So what I discovered on this journey, and then so you hit like uninformed, you hit a stage. I'm a bad paraphraser, but there's a stage where you hit informed pessimism and the valley of despair, right? This is when you're like realizing, kind of like having kids. Oh, it's going to be so fun. And they're just going to love me all the time. And I'm going to love them all the time. And then you realize that this is a full human experience with a multitude of, because growth doesn't happen in comfort, right? So, similarly to raising children, you learn a lot about yourself, right? You learn where you're stuck. You learn where you're holding yourself back. So there's a couple of points when you get really, really real on maybe the places where you've been BSing yourself, which I certainly did, right? And then you start to you have informed optimism, right? And then you get confidence because then you can see it's working. Let me know if the AC just kicked on because it's hot here in the summertime. If it's too loud, okay.
Nope.
Okay. So that's really kind of like the trajectory of what I myself experienced. And if you go back to, it looks like the live video is interrupted. The broadcast has been paused. I don't know if that's on my end or your end, but you know what? When you post this on the page, the whole thing will show up.
Okay.
So we should just continue. It might actually be on my end because my internet is notoriously crummy.
Okay.
Out in the country. So we'll just carry on. So so when I started my journey, I had like unrealistic expectations because I didn't realize how much I needed to unearth. And if you go back to if you look at my page and you go back to like August 2019, this would probably be a really good exercise for anybody who thinks that I'm something special, and that I could never do what Noelle does. I could never show up that way because I'm just not her, right? It would be a great exercise for people to go back and look at that early content. Oh my goodness. So we love ourselves at every single stage because we know that was exactly what we needed to be for that time. So yeah, I went through an incredible transformation. I went through, at every stage there's choice. So I got the choice whether or not to step into a greater version of myself or shrink back. And then you get to sit in that for a little bit. And then I always make the expansive choice, even if I have to have a little argument with myself about it before I do. Right. So 2 years later, I've had kind of a lot of cycles of this, there's been a lot of healing. I'm really big into healing. I'm really big into self-development. But I've also learned a lot of real life skills and real business strategy and implemented it. So I went from having a very, not really making a lot of income, not really making a lot of impact kind of in my shell to, having an audience of like 5,000 all around the world and starting a global movement called the Thrive Movement, which is really holding that reality that we can create whatever we want to create, no matter what the external circumstances are. So we had a wild time last year, and there was a moment when I bought into the narrative, and it was the only month in my business that I didn't make income. It was literally the only month.
That's an aha moment.
Yes.
Wow.
Had nothing to do with external events. It had everything to do with my own mindset.
Sure.
And when I pulled my head out of my keister and realized that, as Joe Dispenza says, I'm the placebo, I am the thing that is making this work. I had my biggest month in business with my highest income ever in my life. And I helped 2 other people on my team achieve that as well. So that's kind of the journey. I wouldn't trade, just like raising children, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That's it.
So tell us, what were some of the biggest challenges and what you would want anybody to avoid?
Anybody to avoid. Okay. So yes, the biggest challenge is our own mind. Another way to say that is imposter syndrome. Everybody has it, even if they pretend they don't, or you think they don't, or they seem like they have it all together. Everybody has it. Academy Award winning actors, I've heard, because one of my incarnations was a professional actress in my 30s, and I worked in film and television. And I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore, but it was an interesting time, and I did acquire some skills. But I remember hearing an interview. Oh boy, it was somebody with a sir at the beginning of their name, like a Royal Academy actor. And I think it might have been one of the guys who played I think it was the guy who played the evil wizard in the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But he says that there comes a time with all art, he's talking about artists and actors, but I think this applies to everybody, when it doesn't even matter how much time, again, bad paraphrase, but it doesn't matter how much time you've been spending on your craft. It doesn't matter how much you've studied, but you start to doubt yourself. And that just happens with everybody, right? And so I would say that imposter syndrome, what can happen is if we don't realize that our minds are neuroplastic, and that all of our beliefs are simply just a story that we've been telling ourselves again and again and again. Somebody else might have told us that originally, and our subconscious believes everything it hears. So it latches on. If we're in a vulnerable state, like we are in the years of 0 to 7, it latches on and it tells that narrative over and over and over again until we believe it. And so we can have people who believe that they are stupid, incapable, ugly. We can believe anything. And if we buy into that and do not realize that it is simply a story, and we can change all of those stories, because the brain is mutable, which means it can be changed, and there is technology on changing it, then we just stay in a fixed personality. And there's no such thing. It's a myth, right? So there's 2 things that can get a person unstuck from a fixed view of themselves, right? And we're not hating on the subconscious. We love it. The subconscious has kept us safe. It kept me safe for almost 5 decades, right? However, safe is not growth.
Right.
And safe can be a misperception, right? What was dangerous when we were 5 or 6 isn't dangerous now, and we can release that, right? So there are techniques and strategies and help for all of that. Inner work, but also action. So here's the reason why action is so powerful for transforming limiting beliefs. When you start to push yourself past your fear and do it anyway, even if you're freaking out, like you saw, this is the first time, I think, Zanna, have you ever done a Zoom where you put a Zoom live into your group before? Okay. So she didn't know what she was doing because she's never done it before, right? It's same thing happened to me when I did it for the first time, right? And we can use that as a reason, not knowing, we can use that as a reason to never start. But what happens is we stay stuck in the narrative that we don't know what we're doing. Whereas when we are willing to take messy, brave action, every single time we do it, we get better and we learn more about ourselves, and we begin to change our view of self, right? Which is actually deeply embedded in our subconscious minds. When we begin to change our view of ourselves, that is what builds confidence, right? So taking messy action and continuously upgrading our abilities, which is only accomplished by learning and doing, we begin to develop confidence, right? It's not that we develop the belief that it's both. I should say it's both. It's holistic, right? Sometimes doing the action creates the belief, and sometimes affirming to yourself and then taking the action. So I would say that I would encourage people to make sure that they're doing both things, right? They're working on the inner work, and you know, Zanna is masterful at all sorts of tools on that. And I think she's shared many of them in this group, or will be sharing them. And then the strategy aspect, right? What do you do? What actions do you take?
Right. So we are here to learn from you, and I'm just wondering, where would you point all of us in this group? Yeah, where can we go to get the help that you got? Where can we go to learn all of those things that we need to do to change our mind, get a different mindset? Is there some special help that you had? Is there an app or something like that that you would offer up to us to get that help?
Yeah, for sure. So you could, like what I did was spend probably about $5,000 to $7,000 on some really amazing coaches and gurus, which I did. Or at the beginning of last year, I found a community called the Freedom Era Community. Freedom Era Community, and this is put together from 7-figure brand builders, very conscious entrepreneurs, freedompreneurs. And they basically, one of my biggest mentors in that group, Christy Ord, she said 4 years ago was in a situation which nobody wants to be in. She was pregnant with her first baby and she had $7 in the bank account. And she and her husband were like, and they were freedom people. Like they were like, she had done the corporate thing. She had a degree. She tried to go in corporate and she felt like the soul death that I felt as well. And she was like, I just can't do that. But I also can't live in poverty. So something's going to give. And they really applied themselves to figuring it out. So they read all the books. They went to conferences. They borrowed money to go to conferences. You know, they went to Tony Robbins conferences. They hired coaches. They could not afford all this stuff, right? But they couldn't not afford it because it was basically their precious life, right? So they learned all this stuff and they aggregated. They aligned with some other entrepreneurs who were creating a model, an automated model that was conscious, where they could monetize their values, basically who they were in personal branding, and created this incredible education platform. So what they did was they took all this, they created two 7-figure businesses for themselves, going from $7 to 7 figures in 4 years, actually less than 4 years. I think they made their first $1 million by the second year. So this shit works, right? Yeah. And so they took all this information and they realized that in order to make it duplicatable, in order to make it so that other people could learn it and do it, they needed to aggregate it, which is like to put it all in one place and to put it in sort of a format that anybody could learn from. So they did that last year, and that's what I aligned with. And it has taken me from like knowing nothing. I mean, I didn't know what an algorithm was. I didn't even have an Instagram account. I didn't know what a Facebook story was. I knew writing. I'm a good writer, but that's only going to get you so far. To being able to like totally support my family 100% with my online business plus some. And so I would say and there is a link that Zanna can send you to check that out. But also our business community, which is the Freedom Era Community, is actually putting on a summit right now. So you can learn more about our community. You can learn more about our amazing education platform. And in fact, there is so the summit's going on for the next 3 days, and all of the content is available on replay if it doesn't fit your timing. And there's a class tonight at 4 that I'm teaching. So we're going to go into more detail on what the Freedom Era is, what's in the platform, and how, if you feel that like, online is the way to go, right? I think everybody knows that at this point, but how do you do that? What does that mean? So I would recommend jumping on live or on the replay, either one.
Great. So you'll make sure that I have those links, and I will put them in the comments in our group. And I started with the Freedom Era, and I have lots and lots and lots of education, but I never learned so much as I did in those first 3 weeks. Holy cow. Wow. It's been really, really great. So, well, thank you so very much, Noelle. We really appreciate your taking the time, especially because you'll be doing a class in about 2.5 hours. I appreciate your taking the time to talk to us, and I hope that you will come back. And as we garner more questions, and as we're going further along in our journey, and we may need a little bit more of your wisdom and advice, I'll be calling on you.
I would be honored and delighted.
Great. Well, you have a blessed day, rest of your afternoon, and have a fun doing that class tonight. And we will be seeing you. Thank you so much, Noelle. I appreciate everybody being here. If you were here, please put your name in the comments, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.